Good afternoon, folks. It is Mike with Southern Staffing Group. And as mentioned last week, we just picked up a new client that I've known for the better part of about a year now in the form of AMP Quality Energy Services, which is based out of the Alabama area. And we are currently seeking a NETA I technician for them for the Atlanta area. And so we've already done interviews, talking head interviews with both Brian Rogers, the CEO of the company that got really, really great feedback, and the hiring manager, William Sasser, over there, which was also very well received. And at first, when you're talking to people, and obviously we kind of started forming bonds and relationships. And one of the things that always strikes me is when a company says they are really like family and treat everybody as such and all of those other good things. And then it just happened to be that one of my prior colleagues who you see on the screen now, Brandon Johnson, and I, he was a fire control chief on the USS NETA when I was the combat systems officer, and thought highly of working with him back then. And long story short, Brandon had reached back out. And Brandon, how long ago did you hire on with AMP? I can't remember what it was right off the top of my head.
It was
6 months,
just over
8
the
months?
turn of the new year.
Okay, so yeah, since about January, he onboarded with the process and did everything. And basically, I wanted to have him on board. And for full transparency, Brandon is no longer with AMP. He found a role that would, take on more scope of responsibility, less travel, has more time at home, and things like that. And even during the exit interview process, it was nothing but support from AMP, and they wished him well. And with that being said, it's rare that you see that kind of engagement and care and culture from a company. And especially for somebody who's already left the company, it's usually most folks are just disappointed with the efforts or whatever it may be that you have to overcome. That was definitely not the case with Brandon. And as mentioned, I've known Brandon for several years now. And I said, hey, would you mind hopping on just to kind of talk through the culture over at AMP? Because I think that is probably one of the biggest selling points of this role, based on the fact that when most people talk with companies, larger companies just by proxy, PE-backed companies and things like that, it is very difficult to maintain a culture of closeness and a true family type environment. And so what better way to kind of delve into that than talking to somebody who just recently, the exit interview, I believe, was yesterday for you, if I'm not mistaken, or this morning. This morning. So literally just finished up the exit interview, getting ready to tread out into a new path in project management. Brandon did hire on as NETA I there and was working through it. And that's why I thought it was relevant to have him on for a conversation. So without further ado, Brandon Johnson, thank you for joining us. I appreciate you, man. And I just really wanted to kind of pick your brain with regards to, is AMP truly what they say they are? Of course, obviously, you're going to get that from the hiring manager, the CEO, right? Our jobs in these leadership positions draw people in by whatever means necessary, and it is very hard to find those culture-centric companies these days. So that's why I was like, hey, let's hop him on here. So does the talk match the walk in the case of AMP, I guess?
Oh, 100%. And for anybody that hasn't seen those videos with Brian and William, definitely recommend going back and watching those. I watched them, and that's really what got me introduced to AMP. And I saw the interview that Micah did with them. And everything that they said in those interviews was 100% true. Everything down to having dinner with Brian and his wife before the final decision is made to allow somebody to join their team, right? Which was a great time. My wife and I drove out and met with those two and had a great dinner, and it was just all around a great experience.
And I thought it was one of those things that is just one of those truly unique perspectives. I lean heavily on women's intuition. My wife will knock off a bad player in a space in a heartbeat. And so, like, to me, I totally get where they're coming from. A lot of people would be like, that's a little bit overboard. But in my opinion, it really does go to play towards the culture there. Would you agree with that kind of statement, kind of doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. They definitely want to make sure that they're putting the right people in the company. And I think they've done a great job of doing that so far. Everybody that works there is absolutely amazing. And, I can attribute some of that to having that dinner with Brian, the owner, and his wife, right? Because like you said, a woman's intuition is rarely going to be wrong in those kinds of situations. So, yeah, they've definitely been able to hire the right people that fit their company culture and are willing to be part of that family, I guess.
And like I said, it is truly, and like I said, it's just almost unfathomable to think in today's day and age. Like I said, a company's there to make money. That's what we're there to do: provide, pay bills, pay other people's salaries, and things like that. So to find a company that truly practices what they preach it's not rare per se, but it is extremely difficult in my opinion. So. And then, of course, you and I had gotten to talk about it and some of the other things. And one of those things that really stuck out to me is they are very, very big on traditional values and kind of tying in. I thought it was very cool, and it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. If you're not a religious person, I would say it's probably not going to be in your wheelhouse. And kind of the care and the compassion. If you want to, bounce out and do all those things, it may not be the role for you based on that. But you mentioned even like Brian sends out daily devotion or weekly
Weekly.
devotionals, right?
Yep.
And then and then in the team meetings, I believe you also said they accept prayer requests and things like that. Like that to me is a very, very unique. And again, caveat, not going to be for everybody, right? Understand, but
Sure.
they don't want it to be for everybody because I think they're trying to build a very, very unique culture that is truly just compassionate and caring. Does that sound fairly accurate? And I'm not trying to steal the or
Oh
present
no.
this away, but but
No,
uh, I just get enthusiastic, really.
no, for sure. And even if I think I haven't been on there in a little while, but if you go to their website, there's a prayer request button on their website, right? So, you know, you don't even have to be a part of their company for them to put that level of care into everybody, really.
That is awesome. And then one of the things too that was really cool is I actually got to meet Brian. William didn't get to make it out to Power Test this year, but I got to chat with Brian. And we're pretty good at knocking off, right? Recruiters, we're here to look for the bullshit flag and all that other good stuff, if you will. And you can just kind of, I mean, Brian bought his freaking daughter to Power Test, right? Like turn it into a thing. And it to me, he just exudes that honesty and transparency and really it just doesn't seem like he wavers from his values to me personally. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, definitely it definitely seems that way. And I don't want to get into his personal business. You can
Of
watch the
course.
video. He goes into more detail with you in his video, right? But when you look at his personal life and running a company and still taking the time to personally interview everybody they hire, um, is crazy to me that a company would still do that in 2024.
No, I agree with you, right? Because I mean, what is one of the things we pride ourselves on in the military is delegation, right? So it's one of those type of things. And to me, again, it's just it further iterates the point that they preach or they practice what they preach, rather, on that
Yeah,
aspect of things.
absolutely.
And then and I know, and without getting into too many details, so Brandon is actually he got an opportunity to be closer to home. I know travel was a concern for you and doing that back and forth, and that was a major motivator. But even then, with the substantial promotion and pay raise and growth and responsibility, it was still hard for you to make the decision to leave the company. It sounds like to me.
Oh, it was extremely difficult. And this new opportunity came up. I think I took it was over a week of just constantly talking to. I reached out to everybody that I could think of. I
Yep.
reached out to former bosses, family, my wife, obviously, uh, just anybody that I valued their opinion. I reached out to, and they all were of the opinion that I should take this new opportunity. And even then, it was extremely difficult because working for AMP has been such a great experience that it's tough to pass that up. Just for a little bit of saved time driving, right? And that really ended up being the major deciding factor was I was spending 14 hours a day away from home,
Right.
right? So
No, 100% on that. And I know you and I have talked to that, and I appreciate you running or coming to me with, the questions, and I've earned enough of your trust to be valid in that respect. But ultimately, man, and just for reference, that was due to the fact of the company location and your home where you were living. So it wasn't like AMP sit you on the road to go do all this other good stuff. It was just a
no.
matter of that happened to be your situation, and a relocation just wasn't really appealing, is what it kind of sounds like. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, and I live where I live, and it's the work is just in a different location, right? And it wasn't a traveling position really, right? I wasn't technically on travel, it was a daily commute that ended up being a lot more than what I expected. But the company as a whole doesn't travel very much.
Yeah.
They try to keep people as local as possible, and I think that's probably a big reason why people really like working there too, especially in this industry where, you start to see greater than 70% travel out of a lot of companies, and AMP really, really tries hard to keep it way, way lower than that.
Well, and that was one of those things I found very interesting from a perspective, because that obviously is going to contribute substantially to your overhead. And how many people are at AMP right now? I don't think it's more than
Um,
like
I think it's 25,
25.
30 maybe.
I was going to say like 40. So not a massive
No.
company, which is definitely rare in this space. And they've been around for I believe, how long has AMP been in business? You probably know better than I do,
Oh,
but
it's
20
been a while.
years.
16 years, I think.
16. Okay.
It's been a
So
while.
like they've been doing it, and to me, like, my personal approach is I'm not going to go out and take on existing capital and grow this thing into some massive organization, right? Because you lose so many of those touch points that are important to me, or at least they are personally. And it seems like that's been one of the reasons that they haven't just blown up that way, is because of the culture they're trying to maintain there. And it sounded like and again, I haven't talked to Brian with regards to that for like 6 months now. But like that just really came through in the conversations that we had. And I know they're experiencing some growth, but it seems like they're trying to balance that, and try to make sure that that culture stays intact. Is that kind of what you were seeing on the ground floor as well?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, without having that conversation with Brian, um, but it definitely seems that way, that they're willing to, I guess, sacrifice might be the right word, a meteoric growth
Right.
for maintaining the culture that they have. Obviously, they are growing, right, as they should, but um, yeah, I think they could probably grow faster if they kind of wanted to sacrifice a little bit of that culture, and I don't think they're willing to do it.
That, and to me, like I said, to each their own. But that is the path that I would, personally pursue as well. And then we'll kind of talk on some of the day in the life of stuff. How was training over there? Do you felt like they how was training? It's one we haven't talked about before, so I'm kind of hitting you out of the blue with it. But uh,
No worries, no worries. So their training is coming along. They're starting to ramp up a new training program that will. They're assigning people training topics as opposed to having their NETA threes and fours give training. So they're making the NETA ones take a topic, do the research, and then give a training lesson on that. Usually, I think they're looking at about a half day to a full day worth of training on each
wow.
topic. And they're trying to figure out how to bring people in from their Nashville and Atlanta offices to their Alabama office so that they can be more hands-on, without costing production in those areas, right?
Still
So
got to
they're gonna,
maintain the billable hours.
right,
You know what I
right,
mean? Or you don't
yeah,
have a company.
that'll be a little bit of a challenge, I'm sure, but uh, yeah, if there's any questions or anything, the needed threes and fours are always available to answer the phone and give help where needed. So that hasn't been an issue.
Gotcha. And I'm actually that really reminds me of, like, we would have our seamen or third classes,
Yep.
kind of conduct training, because if you can present the knowledge, then that you had to do the due diligence. You're not going to get comfortable up there. You got to run the reps and sets and stand in front of a mirror and practice your topic and do all that, or your peers are going to light you up, right? Like that's just part
They're
of it.
going
That's
to
where,
anyway, but
yeah. No, 100% fair on that one as well. But to me, that's definitely not. That's a very valid way about going in, because you can really get that to set in and do all that stuff. So I
Yeah.
definitely won't even hate on him for that. And again, like we're just wrapping up a conversation with Tom Sandry in workforce development, micro learnings and stuff for our normal podcast releases and things like that. And one of the comments we got on the YouTube channel was like, well, I want to go and hang out and drink beer afterwards, and I don't have time for the micro learning and this, that, and the other. But that's okay, right? That just means that this kind of culture wouldn't be for you. So
Yeah.
it might sound like an anti job pitch from that perspective, but again, they're looking for somebody very, very specific. And William Sasser, who's the hiring manager, head of TA recruitment and all that other good stuff, and the other individual we had the conversation with, that's for the audience, not you, Brandon. But with him, like that was just like one of those things. Is like he said, Micah, he's like, I'm going to give you the role, but understand I'm going to probably be extremely scrupulous in who you set in front of me. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And so that's why we're kind of gearing the video based around that, because I want people to understand the role very well may not be for you. It's for a very select few that
Mhm.
want to buy into this kind of culture, that want to be a part of a caring team. And I think you mentioned, without going into any details, you had a team member recently that had a family medical emergency or something. We won't talk location details and all that for the sake of privacy, but they bent over backwards to help
Yes.
that individual out. Is that's pretty fair? So
Yeah.
like that's the level of care that you get from this. And you know, we hear it and we see it on social media all the time. Everybody's like, oh, we want the culture and we want the work-life balance. We want people that truly care. But when the rubber meets the road, in this particular instance, again, if you're not living up to your end of that relationship or dynamic, then it's not going to be a fit for those particular people, if that makes sense. And
Right. And
I
I
am a
think we
fan.
see that a lot too in companies, especially, from recruiters and hiring managers and stuff. They always, oh, we're like a family. We got this great culture and, blah, 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 or whatever. But then once you get hired on, all that goes out the window.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then you're just another cog in the machine, just another number on an Excel spreadsheet or whatever. And with AMP, that's 100% not the case.
And that's why I even hesitate to saying it's like a family, because that's become like this taboo, negative connotation, salesman, smoke show BS, basically. And like, to me, and that's why I thought it was so awesome that you would even hop on. And I mean, I think it speaks volumes to the company that you have an ex-employee who literally just finished his exit interview willing to hop on and talk about the company. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So and that's why I truly want to highlight it. And I'll be hosting the kind of the job description and all the requirements and everything that they're looking for. And this is one of those particular instances where we're kind of working through pay over there. So with regards to the NETA 3 role, and this is going to be for a project manager role for them up in the Atlanta. I know you work up in that Atlanta office. How is the team over there?
The team is great. They just hired a new technician not that long ago. The current project manager is awesome at what he does. Um, great guy. Great project manager. I'm a little bit older than him because I'm not a spring chicken anymore, but
You and me both,
definitely
brother.
learned. Definitely learned a lot from him on just the project management side. Even though we didn't like sit down and have a training conversation, right? Just seeing how he operates and stuff has definitely helped me going into this new role too.
And it sounds like that's one of those unique mindset things. Again, everybody once again says, "Hey, I wanted to go test for the 3 or test for the 4, and the company didn't support me. They wouldn't make any time. I'm on billable hours. I've got to be out testing relays, or the field service manager just doesn't have time for me. He's managing workload and all that." It seems like that's one of those core things that they just kind of are embedded in, is like a sharing of knowledge and wisdom, and making sure that you're literally trying to lift everyone up around you. And that and again, like, for everybody's knowledge, Brandon and I got to play catch up. We hadn't had a chance to shoot the breeze in a while, so we talked for about 20 minutes before we hopped on here. But what is that pretty fair? Is that kind of, would you say that that's the part of the culture there, is like literally everybody works to elevate everyone, or is that's kind of what it seems like?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody is more than willing to sacrifice a little bit of their own time to help each other. We had a job not too long ago where I was struggling mightily, because I'm new at this, right?
Absolutely.
And the amount of reports that we had to do was a lot more than I expected. But um, there were several people in the company that were more than willing to just drop what they were doing, help me out so that not only I could succeed, but the project would succeed, and we got through it. But
That and I think that's just a perfect example. Like you're the new guy, right? And heck, we both serve in the military. The new guys get the FNGs, right? Like they get lit up and kind of have to cut their teeth and do all that other good stuff. And I mean, I would say that the military is very family centric and organizationally centric and doing what we can to help our brothers and sisters in arms. But like rarely have I run across that. And we represent some just fantastic companies, a lot of military leadership in some of those companies. But AMP just stands out as one of those like unique diamonds in the rough that just it almost harkens back to like decades ago, right before all the tech got into it. And it was very very much, everybody take care of everybody. You may have and if I'm not mistaken, you guys still have social functions and things like that on a fairly regular basis and things like that, or is that not accurate?
well, we haven't since I had been there. That's only been since January. You know, uh, Winter and stuff is tough to do things, right? But from my understanding, yeah, every year they have, everybody from the company gets together for a couple days and they have social functions and just kind of relax and enjoy each other's company more so than they already do.
That is awesome. And like I said, I don't want to take too much of your day, but to me, it's just one of those things. It's such a unique offering in the space, if you will. And again, I talked on pay earlier, so this one and just kind of covering some of the stuff from the details. Definitely going to be a project manager, NETA 3. Their pay scales may not be as high as some of the other companies that were afforded. Again, I think a lot of that comes down to location, figuring out the Atlanta market. You're home every evening for the most part. I know that there's probably going to be the occasional shutdown where folks have to travel and per diem rates and all that. But I did a market comp, and they're still definitely fair market value. I'm just seeing some on the in the Arizona space where the roles are paying a little bit more. But I think it's just due to the way they run the company and they invest so heavily in their employees, and by proxy, some of that goes to the overhead cost of making sure to grow that team. So if you're a dollar chaser, this isn't going to be your $75, $65, $75 NETA 3 roll. I looked at some of the other offerings on Glassdoor and Indeed and did due diligence. This is going to be sitting right in the middle at that 40 to 60, perhaps for the right person, perhaps a little bit higher. So if you're a dollar chaser, this isn't going to be that role for you. And I want to be fully transparent with everybody from that perspective of things. But it's really, what do you hold most important to you? And again, we're looking for a very, very unique NETA 3 from that perspective. And whenever I do this, I'm going to do a separate little intro video, and then I'm going to have the 3 YouTube links because I think it's well worth the time to take the 3 hours to work and sort through the videos like you did. And you watched William's interview and Brian's interview, and that was ultimately what sold you. And like you said, you're getting traveling offers at phenomenal money right now, but ultimately you decided to even opt out of those based on what you were saying for the culture, the locality, and all that other good stuff. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely got offers on LinkedIn and whatever, upwards 60, 70, $80 an hour, right? But where I'm at in my life, that wasn't important to me.
Right, right.
They were 90+% travel, and
Yeah.
all those conversations ended when I said I'm not willing to relocate or travel. So, yeah, it's just not where I'm at right now.
No, well, that's the joys of serving 20 plus years in the military, like we both did, and it offers you a lot of more flexibility in what you want to chase after. So,
If I was
again,
a young single guy, for sure,
yeah, I'm
right?
chasing that money and
But
going on travel. Yeah.
yeah, I'm neither young nor single anymore. So,
Neither of us, my friend. Neither of us by any stretch of the imagination. And so again, like I said, I wanted to put this video together really just to talk through somebody who's lived that actual culture that's not in that leadership hiring position and doing all that other good stuff, so people can truly get a perspective from that. And I know we had talked about me coming out and doing a ride along with you and all those other good things, just because, hey, I'd like to be able to hang out with you again, and I need to make a damn trip up there anyway. But, you know, truly appreciate you hopping on, man, and kind of talking through over there. Like I said, this is going to be one of those very unique roles that is just not for everybody out there. If you're a dollar chaser, it's not you. If you're not a faith-based person, probably not going to be you. You know what I mean? If you're not into like sharing and growing and developing other persons, this isn't going to be a role for you. So they are indeed, in fact, looking for a diamond in the rough on that aspect. And that's why I just wanted to have somebody that sat that seat, could hop on and kind of talk through it, and then, you know, talk to the whys behind some of that. So I truly appreciate your time today, brother. And like I said, I appreciate it. And I've always enjoyed following your journey. I appreciate you reaching out. And I'm very bad about staying in touch with Navy folks and all that other good stuff that I've served with. And it's part of, you know, going on with life and doing what we do. But I'm definitely glad we got to reconnect. And again, you know, this is one of those situations where you didn't have to. You're not tied to the company. You're not tied by any binds into taking another role. But I think that alone should speak highly of the company. And that's why I wanted to frame it as such and put it out there for folks. So not going to be, but for about maybe 5% of the workforce that's looking. But if you're looking for this kind of role, you want to work in the Atlanta area, that's where the work is right now. Everybody kind of knows that Atlanta's a big data center area. I've got some bubbas at Meta that are doing QA, QC, and regional management and all that other good stuff. So that industry is not dying in that area anytime soon. So again, if you're looking to be in that Atlanta area, looking for stability, looking for this type of culture, feel free to hit us up, drop me a line, and we'll get you guys introduced, get you in front of William, and hopefully open your eyes to the AMP experience, I guess is a good way of looking at it. But brother, like I said, Brandon, thank you so much for hopping on with me, man, and giving me a little bit of your time. And best of luck in your new role as well. And until next time, folks, Mike out.
Have fun.
All right, bud.